Indeed, and good evening everybody. I've never seen so many police in Manchester. Didn't know the TUC dinner could be that fire. I'm at the stage of the campaign where I'm looking for good omens, and on Saturday I was just thinking about this one, you know, unfancied underdogs, and the media were saying it was all over, and then the unfancied underdogs sprung a surprise at the last minute, so a good result for my team and a good omen for the campaign, hopefully, I think there, from my point of view. But no, for me, it's a great field to talk about football, actually. First meeting in 5 months when I've been able to do that. And there's actually one where I'd probably quite like to have my 4 fellow contenders with me, because maybe this is one where I could hold the floor somewhat. But I just want to begin just to say, firstly, if I may, a tribute to Gordon and the PFA, and also colleagues Richard, Bobby and Nick as well. I think it's personally wonderful that the PFA has never forgotten its northern roots like some other organisations. Nobody from the Guardian here, is there? Anyway. I think the PFA's never done that, and that's a wonderful thing that is still based here in the city. But more than that, I just wanted to say something which, for me, the PFA has embodied something that is so important in the trade union movement, a huge contribution to social change in this country. And what I'm talking about is really the campaign that I first became involved with in a genuine politically active sense. I was a regular on the terraces at Goodison all through the 1980s and saw the growing racism on the terraces at Goodison Park that began in the early 80s when Alec Williams was playing for Manchester City, and I can remember appallingly as he was coming towards the home end at half-time once when people were holding up burning crosses at Goodison Park. And then as the 80s developed, terrible racism grew, particularly when John Barnes signed for Liverpool. And for me and my brothers at the time, it really was the first thing that really kicked us into wanting to do something rather than just feel outraged. And I remember coming here to the old, to the Mechanics Institute, I think it was, where the PFA, in conjunction with the People's, or what was then the Labour History Museum, organised an event, The Colour of Your Scarf, The Colour of Your Skin. And it was wonderful that somebody was standing up against racism in football, and for us it gave us a focal point for the efforts we were involved in to try and combat racism at Everton. And I just wanted to praise the PFA for that, because down the years the PFA made a huge contribution to tackling racism in football, and because of that, tackling racism in society. And I think, Gordon, it will forever be an incredible legacy that the PFA has given the country. I just want to give you I just want to give you a few thoughts from the other end of the perspective, really, from Gordon's and the player's perspective. Fascinating kind of perspectives on how the finances of football changed over the decades. Let me give you the other way at this, where I came in as culture secretary. After 15 years, where I would say market forces had run riot through football, and I believe that to be the case. And I would say what we've seen in recent times is a flood of money coming into the top of the game, but a failure to regulate the top of the game, and that has given us, in many ways, a dysfunctional national game at the moment. And I just want to say a few thoughts about that. For me, the biggest surprise of recent times, the biggest surprise of the summer, was that our failure in South Africa didn't actually kick off any great big debate about the state of football in this country. I thought it would. In fact, I tried to start it and it didn't happen. It seemed to me as though people have become accepting now of underperformance and failure at international events, and that worries me greatly. And I still feel in this country we are trapped in this situation where we want both. We want the strongest league in the world and we want the best national team in the world. But as other countries have realised, the two don't necessarily go together. You need to take steps to regulate your national game so that it supports the national team. And I believe we still haven't understood that relationship properly. I believe we've got some deep-seated problems in English football. Essentially, we have huge inequality, as Gordon described, and we also have a crisis in ownership of football clubs. And all of that is caused by a failure in regulation at the top of the game. I would say, let me just speak very briefly about two particular problems. Firstly, inequality. as Gordon said, over time we've had a game that has become more and more focused on an ever smaller number of clubs. If you think back to the game as it originally developed, where the collective was the important thing, where everybody was looking after each other, that has diminished over time. And now we don't even have an even distribution of funding within the Premier League, and they've flattened it out recently. But if you win the Premier League, you earn quite a lot more money than if you get relegated. Add to that, the resources from the Champions League creates a very unequal game. The double whammy is that the money at the top of the game creates an inflationary pressure on the rest of English football. So the effect on wages at the top of the game mean that clubs in the Championship have to pay a bit more, and then clubs in League One have to pay a bit more, and the pressure of the Premier League exerted all the way down. So at the very bottom they don't have any of the money, and yet they still feel the pressure of a bloated game at the very top. So that inequality, I think, is deeply damaging to the game, to the fabric of our national game, and it gets wider every year. And Gordon finished on it, and it was a phrase I was going to use as well. The dream factor is dead in this country. You know, I've just about brainwashed my son to support Everton, and the job is done, I'm pleased to report to you all. You know, there's no way he's going to support anybody else now. But I answered a question over a summer. One of the leadership surveys I've done, there was the Daily Mirror saying, "What's the biggest lie you've recently told?" And I said it was, "Yeah, Jimmy, we can win the Premier League." I think that is the truth. I mean, you know, it's not the same for kids supporting their team these days. For us, all of us in this room of a certain age, when we started getting passionate about the game, it's because it was possible that our team could go all the way. And you have to ask yourself, what does it do to a young person's experience of football now if they're supporting a club that has no realistic hope of winning the league, and if all success is relative, i.e. avoiding relegation? I think that is a fundamental long-term problem for English football that nobody is truly grappling. I would like to see a strict equality in the Premier League in terms of the distribution of resources, and I would like to see more money given from the Premier League to the Football League, because I believe that would reduce the inflationary effect on the top, and it would create a more balanced top flight. And that takes strong regulation, but sadly we've had regulators in this country that are not prepared to stand up to the big clubs.